Okay, we are recording. Dan, how are you today?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yes, nice to see you again. We were just saying it's been like 10 years
Yeah.
since me and you saw each other in the even the virtual flesh. You know
Mm.
what I mean? But we did a lot of stuff back in the day, didn't we?
We did, and you boys would frequent my establishment as well, and drink your beer and party in the toothbrush, and you
Love
put
it,
a
mate.
good stint in there over the years, mate.
Yeah, man. Some of the best nights. Kids don't know what they're missing. I mean, it's just we were talking about the other day. It's amazing that the place is still going.
Yeah,
Um, in a world where all of these things, all these scenes and cultural things seem to be taken away from generations, the fact that that's still there and vibrant and kids, 18, 25-year-olds can go down there and have it is
yeah,
brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Because people shouldn't take it for granted because a lot of
absolutely.
bands don't have that anymore. Do you know?
Absolutely. Well, look, let's kick off your playlist. And I'm going to ask you, Dan, to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please, mate.
Okay, so, I mean, I got just a caveat to this, Stu. My manager sent me this message from you this morning at 7 o'clock. I was there pouring the shreddies to the kids, putting in going, I've got to come up with like some of the most difficult answers to musical questions ever whilst making the porridge. And I got my 3-year-old screaming because he wants more sugar on his cereal. So I was like, okay, I'll thin slice it, go quick. It's probably more authentic because I haven't overthought it and tried to add some like cool, credible things. I've just gone, right, what's the honest answer to that? So, first one, it was a tough choice between two, but it's All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. It could have been Layla, but I thought probably too cliche. But All Along the Watchtower. And the reason, and this is kind of goes back to like my early roots of music. My uncle, bless him, he passed away a couple of months ago. He was like a big pillar of the family. One of my dad's best friends. He was my mum's sister's husband, but he was the guy who got me into guitar. So we used to go. They're from Liverpool. My mum's side of the family from Liverpool, so I got a lot of northern blood in me. So we used to go back and forth up there when we were kids to see my cousins. It's like a 4.5 hour journey. Um, so we go up to see him, and he was a guitarist, and he had, I remember it was if you know your guitars, it was an SG 2000, which is like a really cool guitar, like super cool. It was in maple, and it had this beautiful case. And he'd pull it out. I'd hear him play, and I'd go up and sneak and have a look at what he was doing. And he was always really open. It's like, come in and play stuff. And I remember hearing this song all along the Watchtower. The first time was in his car driving somewhere with my cousins. Um, and he was the person who introduced me to Jimi Hendrix. Now, I was probably about 7 or 8. So how much of that, like, I didn't then suddenly become a Jimi Hendrix fan, but I do viscerally remember it. And he was into all of that kind of music. It was Dire Straits, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, all those kind of classic blues guys. And he was the one that gave my mum a guitar, which was sitting in the cupboard from when I was about 5, and I'd go in and sneak it out and have a little play. And so he's really kind of, bless him. He was the guy that kind of inspired me to pick up the guitar because I'm not sure if I would have been exposed to it otherwise. And it's also iconic. You know it
Yeah.
when you hear it, right?
And Dan, in regards to intros and the milk, because I've been a fan and have followed the band from its very early inception when you were Vinny Vinny through to
Yeah, mate.
to the milk and onwards and over the years watching you develop and become more accomplished at what you do is remarkable. The debut record was pretty punchy and was like almost pop tinged, and I mean that in
No,
the
it
good
was, mate.
sense.
Yeah, we were with a big major record label, and they wanted a pop record. Yeah, they wanted pop crossover. You
Mm.
know, because we'd gone from being like this kind of cool underground London soul band, wearing mod suits, and someone comes and goes, look, well, if you just change it a little bit, we'll give you 150 grand, and you can go live out your dreams for a couple of years. It's easy to once you and we've been doing it for like 12 years up to then. We've been going
Mm.
since we were 13 years old. So when someone at 26 goes, here's a load of money, listen to what we're saying, it'll work, you're easily corrupted. Do you know what I mean? And we were easily corrupted, blinded by the lights of it all. And I think, the songs there's some really good songs on there. I think, and there's some great moments, but yeah, it's probably in hindsight we sold out a little bit too much for that first record. Yeah, sorry, you carry on, mate. You were asking about
I,
intros.
I think it's a great record, and to see you do that and tour and play some amazing venues. I think I saw you at the Roundhouse when that record was out,
Yeah.
and then to see you really sort of mature as songwriters, and to see that continue. What I'm interested in now is if you've moved sort of further away from them sort of pop sensibilities, and we now live in a world where attention spans are shorter and people want everything in an instant. Tell me a little bit, Dan, about how you approach songwriting and the intro essentially, and do any of the kind of factors in how people are consuming their music and wanting everything quick and fast and attention spans are thinning, and does any of that sort of filter through into your creative process?
Not when you're writing. Do you know what I mean? Not when we're writing. We write whatever we want to write, whatever we got a story to tell, whatever we think's good is good, right? It's kind of that Rick Rubin thing. You got to be authentic. If you try and write for the gallery, as David Bowie said, you're gonna fall flat. And we've made those mistakes before. And I think to a degree, the first album we wrote for the gallery a little bit, trying to write pop songs rather than just writing what was in us to write. And now we just write. But then it comes to the edit process when you're like, okay, which songs are contenders to be releases, like singles? Okay, that one's got a really strong hook from the start. So I Need Your Love, which is one of the first single we put out, that's got a really big brass thing, like a jungle song right from the start. And you know straight away that it's a hook, because people generally don't want to spend, unless they're a fan already, they don't want to spend 30 seconds to a minute getting into the song. You need to hit them. So you do have to bear that in mind. Ultimately, it's a consumable. We do want people to listen and enjoy it. So there are some creative things that happen after the songs have been written to make sure that we give them the best opportunity to be heard. But generally, no, I personally don't try and think about commerciality when I'm writing. Just write whatever is in your heart to write.
Okay. I'm going to ask you now, Dan, to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
All right. Again, this was actually quite easy, this one. It was like straight in my head. I remember I was telling you about those journeys. We used to do these journeys up from Wickford in Essex all the way up to Birkenhead, which is like the southern side of the Mersey. So they're not Liverpudlians, really. They're from the Whittle. But my mum's from up there, and my dad's family from up there. So I'm actually a northerner in disguise with a southern accent. And we used to do these long journeys. My old man had a Volvo, an old estate Volvo, and had the seats that faced backwards. And me and my sister would sit in the back of the car going up, and you could pull faces at the drivers behind you. My mum used to have all these tapes. My mum was the music fan, not my old man. All my music taste comes from my mum. So she used to have all these wicked tapes, like 60s classic tapes. A lot of them were compilations. And I remember hearing Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel for the first time. And I couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, maybe. And instant, like, captivated by it. And didn't even, I think, just by the emotion of the voice, couldn't really, didn't understand the imagery. Like, I was too young. But that one, yeah, and still does to this day, is one of the, top 5 greatest songs of all time,
Do you think that was like maybe the first time that music hit you in a different way to what it had done previously, insofar as it was just kind of melody and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, I don't know. I mean, that is an incredible record, and it delivers in so many ways. Do you think it was like that? When I've asked this question previously, it's always quite a sort of. I'm always interested in people's choices for this, because it really feels like it's always at a young age, and like you, it's generally in your mum and dad's car.
Yep.
And it's just like the first time that all of a sudden something doesn't just feel like melody, and it's got a different, it goes to a different place. Do you know what I mean? Like resonates harder.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of some songs, right? You know, that some songs just have a frequency, not to sound like a hippie, but they connect, you know, to the universe in a way that, you know, they're completely timeless in terms of it doesn't matter how old or young you are, you can experience the emotion of that song. And there's lots of other songs that do that, you know, but Bridge Over Troubled Water is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. You listen to it now and it's ridiculous. It's like it was brought from, if there is a heaven or was a heaven, like it was brought from heaven, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, and there are other songs like that, but that one in particular feels like it was a, you know, he didn't write it; it was given to him. Do you know what I mean? That's how good it is.
Yeah, he ain't bad at writing a song, is he, Paul Simon? He's pretty
Right,
useful dude.
he's all right. Do you know what I mean? It was back in the day; anyone could write a song back then. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, let's stay in the formative years, Dan. And for track three, I'm going to ask you to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Right. So there's a duality kind of thing going on here. So I grew up in the, you know, in Wickford in Essex in the 90s, right? So there was sort of two parallel cultures going on. There was like Britpop, and there was like jungle and all those kind of things going on. And my school was very much that kind of jungle thing, like whatever that thing is, that's what people were into. They weren't into Britpop, but I was a Britpop fan, right? So there was this kind of like the hidden. You kind of I went along with the crowd, but I was really just a massive like rock and roll blues head. And I remember my older brother, he's like 5 years older than me. He was banging to Oasis, so I would have been about 11, and I used to hear Oasis blaring out of his stereo, and I was instantly into it. I was like, "What is this? This sounds like me." But he wouldn't share any of his CDs with me. So the song that reminds me most of that period is "Columbia" by Oasis. So definitely maybe not just because but also the lyrics. Like I don't know the way I feel because the way I feel is also new to me. Like I was an adolescent trying to find his place in the world, and all the music that I loved had come from my parents, and all the music that I was being told I was supposed to like, I didn't like. And then suddenly something came along that I really did like and was talking to me about things that felt real to me. And as a boy who was playing guitar, I could play the songs. Do you know what I mean? I could pick them up, and they were simple songs, and with simple, like I could play the main guitar lines at 11 because they're simple, they're iconic, but they're simple. So yeah, that's the one for me. Columbia Oasis.
And that's the genius, isn't it? It's simple, yet it's so good. And I think like you saying like, you know, all of these records that you grew up listening to, like, you know, all of these kind of rock and roll bands, that's the stuff that Noel was drawing from. You could hear their influences so clearly, and I'm sure there was probably a few lawsuits on quite a few of them,
Sure,
but
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 he's quite unashamed about it. He's like, yeah, of course I did. Like, and there are ones where it's like, this is so obvious that it's almost funny.
yeah.
But you know, they're brilliant in their own right. You know, so
And, and I think like as a young lad, like you know, I'm older than you, Dan. So like you know, I was playing them records in the clubs at that point, and it was really interesting because up until then, alternative music was very alternative, and them lads that like drum and bass and jungle, like they weren't ever gonna go and listen to something from some band in ripped jeans and long hair because they just looked scruffy and shit. And then all of a sudden, there's these boys that are making this hard guitar music that have got Fred Perry's on and like and Adidas and like cool haircuts, and they're talking about football, fighting, fucking, and all of that. And
yeah,
all of a sudden, it was like, oh, and it was the beginnings of lad culture in the 90s, which meant all of a sudden, like it weren't uncool to like Oasis if you weren't into guitar music. They opened it up to football terraces. They opened it up, and Noel walked on stage. When he said, when I walked on stage at Nebworth, literally said to himself, "I've just killed the indie scene because them." kind of days of like these small little indie bands, like, you know, bit like it's gone now. It's like it's become like indie music's become for quite a long time pop
Yeah,
music. They were
yeah,
pop stars, you know, and then all of these kids that had never come to the Pink Toothbrush, like because it was full of weirdos, all of a sudden they're turning up now in a Ben Sherman, and like, and they've also then just gone and bought Park Life and Pulp and Suede and before and Supergrass, and before you know it, like
well, that's
all of them scenes then cross over as well because all of a sudden Oasis are working with the Chemical Brothers, and then all of a sudden Underworld are being played in alternative
yeah.
clubs, and the Prodigy, and like it all just come together, and they were at the forefront.
Well, you have to say they are culturally. They were the thing that tipped it over the edge. There were great bands before that who led the way, but certainly, I think it's almost also like, you know, it's that permission thing. You know, you got people. There are people at the front of every kind of cultural movement, like, and they're the ones that start spreading the word about this new thing. And then all the other sheep go, oh, this is really good, and it's okay that I like it, like you said. And then suddenly you change that, because the 80s, apart from a few bands, was not the best period for music, in my opinion. So, you know, after what was quite a dry period for things that were relevant to working class people, you know, that music spoke to the working class people. Whereas the 80s was not really about that, was it? It was all about, you know, money, 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 and, you know, but yachts and boats and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
I'll ask you this though: if you could have been a pop star in 1995, or you could have been a pop star making videos like Rio on a fucking yacht in 1985, where would you have been, Dan?
If you'd asked me uh, when I was 20, I would have taken the first. But now I'd take the second. Definitely take the yacht. I ain't fussed about being hip and cool anymore. You know what I mean? Give me the yacht. Give me the money in the yacht. You know?
Exactly, mate. Cool points don't pay the bills, mate.
Absolutely. Got my school uniforms. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, let's go back to school, Dan. Was that an experience that you enjoyed?
yeah, I was lucky. I never really had any problems at school. You know, I got on. I didn't find it too difficult. I had good friends. I met the boys from the band in like year 7, year 8. So I found my little clique, you know, early doors. I had my little unit. We had a thing. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so that protected me from a lot of the other stuff that maybe some kids struggle to find a place in school. You know, find their, you know, their little clique, their group, and they're the ones that really struggle. So I didn't, you know, and I always enjoyed it. To me, it was easy just hanging out with your mates all day. You know what I mean?
Did you? I mean, I know you boys got together as a band, you know, quite young. Like in them sort of years at you know, tail end of secondary school and stuff like that. Did music seem like it could be a viable career option?
I wasn't really thinking about it that much, to be fair. Like, it wasn't till like we got to university and it was like we were starting to do, you know, I was starting to think about stuff like that. Up until then, I was just doing it because I like doing it. Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, my old man was more, you know, he supported me. You know, great that you're doing this, but you know, it was more old school. You need an education, you need a backup plan. Like, you know, you're intelligent, you need to be you know, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. So he was very much like, fine, do that, but make sure that you're protecting yourself by being smart enough to go get a job if you need to, kind of thing. So I always had that kind of split in my head. You know, it was like, yeah, that's one thing, but I've got another thing I've got to take care of. And actually, in hindsight, he was right, because the world we moved into, music nowadays, is that it's very difficult unless you're at the upper echelons to make a ton of money and have a, you know, a comfortable lifestyle for a family just off music. You need to be, you know, have another business which is generating enough money so you can do the music for the sake of the music, you know.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you now, Dan, to tell me the first record you remember buying from a record shop, please.
This fits perfectly into the last track, because, like I said, I was like 11. You know, the music had always been music of other people's generation. So it was Columbia, and that would have come out in the '94, August '94, something like that. And my brother was playing it front to back. Would never lend it to me, like just wouldn't. I was like, mate, can I listen? No, he was like 15, 16 at the time, so I was just a little annoyance to him. Do you know what I mean? And eventually, I remember every January, it was my birthday in January, and my nan, God bless her, she used to send us, because she lived up in the Wirral, she used to live up in Birkenhead, and she'd send me 20 quid, which back in like '94 was a lot of money, right? So I'd get this crisp 20 in a card for my birthday every year. And all the previous years, I'd buy like a video or something from Adrian's in Wickford.
Yeah, I mean, you was lucky. You had a very, very good independent record shop in Wickford, mate.
So sad that that thing did not carry on. So yeah, Adrian's in Wickford was this incredible record store, and yeah, they had everything down there. So I went with my £20 and bought my first copy, my first CD, definitely maybe, and that was it. It's mine now. You can't tell me I can't listen to it. And that started a love affair with Oasis that lasts till today, but a very serious love affair for at least 3 years, where I refused to listen to any other music because I was so agent to the band. It's weird. I think for a lot of kids, it just hit at just the right time for me to be like, this is my Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like a religion to me.
It's so weird. It's like the Oasis story is so fascinating, and to see the full circle that it's gone, and I've got to be honest, I thought they were great. Like they weren't my favourite band of that era. I thought there were other bands that I preferred, but to see what they've done, I was lucky enough to sort of see them. I saw them in Southend, and
Is that
support.
Live by the Sea?
Mm,
Oh man, my brother
yeah,
had a poster on his wall. That was one of the I mean, and he had the recording because they recorded it, didn't they?
yeah.
In a recording.
It was a crazy day that. So they were supported by at the time just Verve before they become the Verve, supported by Verve, and they opened the venue earlier in the day, and I blagged in because the doorman from the Toothbrush were looking after Oasis, like they were doing all the security. So I managed to blag me way in, and in the afternoon, I think like 200 people were allowed in, and you got given this T-shirt. It was a navy blue T-shirt like what I'm wearing now, but it had like Rock and Roll Star written on it, and then Rock and Roll Star written in like 5 different languages underneath it. And then they filmed the video for the American release of Rock and Roll Star that afternoon.
Wow.
So it was a pretty good day. You got to kind
That's a
of get
good
in the
day, though.
video for that, and then you see the Verve, and then Oasis, literally, who were like the hottest ticket then. And to think that like now they're the hottest ticket again, like all these years later, is crazy. And I kept looking when they announced they were playing. My missus was like, "I'm going to try and get tickets." So I was like, oh, "Okay." Like, do you want to go? I said, "I'm not that bothered. I've seen them a few times. I'm not that bothered." And then I don't get tickets, and then people start posting footage, and I'm like, that looks so fucking good.
Do you know, I had the same thing because all the boys in the band did it. I got three little kids, right?
Yeah,
I got bills and shit to pay, right? So I was like, I can't really warrant dropping 400-500 quid on a day out, right? That's a big ask, right, for me to sign that off with the missus. I'm going out, I'm going to spend 500 quid to watch Oasis. Like, she'd be like, you what? So I was like, I can't really pull that one off. And also, I don't want that feeling of seeing them and they don't live up to the expectation, because I saw them like 2 or 3 times back in the day when they were at their zenith, powerful, like young, and like, it was at the height of their powers. And I remember seeing the Rolling Stones at Glastonbury a few years back and being like, just viscerally disappointed by watching old men play those youthful songs.
mm.
And maybe that's wrong of me to think like that, but it was like I had this vision of what it was going to be and it didn't live up to it. So I was like, I don't want that. But then all the boys went to see it and were like, it's the best thing I've ever seen. I was like, cool, man, that's great. I'm glad you had a good time. But yeah, they spent a lot of money on it, man. I mean, boy, are they making some money on that tour. Whew. I can't even get my head around it. They are having it off. Having it off.
Right. Okay. Tell me the song that soundtracked to your year's clubbing, Dan.
Clubbing. All right, here we go. this goes back to the duality thing. So you got one side, I'm in a band, we're playing music, and we were doing all that at the time, and the other side, all of our mates were, like to go out clubbing, and our place was Southend was a bit too far for us, so Chelmsford was our base. So if we weren't sneaking off to the Toothbrush to do band stuff, we'd be going out to Duke's and Zeus, right? And it was Zeus was the one, because Duke's had a firmer policy on getting in. You couldn't get into Duke's, right? But at 15, we were of the generation who started drinking down the park. Do you know what I mean? You drinking White Lightning at 13 years old in Rettendon Park, smoking your dad's cigars. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was that kind of thing. So as soon as we were able to, and it was a different time, I used to have this little production run where I used to make fake IDs. And my mum had a laminator, so I'd print out these fake IDs for people. I had a little trade going on where I'd stick them all together when it was before the ID card and all that, where you could get away with like a laminated thing. It said, yeah, I'm 18. And so we used to use these cards to get in. And just hilarious stories. I remember, because back in them days, that they didn't really care. Do you know what I mean? So you'd rock up, and there was a stupid policy. You always had to have shoes and trousers on, right? So you couldn't wear jeans and trainers, and you'd walk up, and they'd go, "No, mate, you can't come in. Got any ID?" Or you'd show them the ID. They go, "No, mate," and you go, "Right, regroup." You go back to the pub, which was letting you drink. You'd swap jackets and clothes, swap a hat, walk back up, go to the other doorman, and get in. And there was all these, and then other times where you go in and you were wearing trainers, and they would go, "No, you can't come in with trainers." So you go back and put your socks over your trainers, your black socks over your trainers, and walk back up in. And I remember the excitement of being like 15 and getting into a club and feeling like, I'd made it. I'm here. Like do you know what I mean? Like that feeling of being like, I had the same. I remember going to the Brits party years ago, like 2012. It was the same feeling. Like, I've arrived, like from a club in Chelmsford to that kind of thing. It's the same emotion. Do you know what I mean? Like I felt I was playing with the big boys. And it's sad those places don't really exist anymore. Do you know what I mean? Kids ain't gonna have that. Because it was cheap as well, man. Like I remember we were talking about it the other day. Like you could go. It was like you get your cab. It was like 8 of us in a minibus. There's your cab, your fags, a kebab at the end of it, your ticket in, all your booze, and it was like 30 quid. Like, what would you spend now doing that? It would cost you like 120 quid to go and have that night out now. Kids can't afford to do it.
Absolutely. And that's why literally we're the only nightclub left in Essex. Like there's no nightclubs in Southend, there's no nightclubs in Romford, Basildon. Like it's crazy. And
you think how many there were back in the day. And reality is things changed, like life moves on. And actually a lot of the music in those places was sold as shit. Right, just shit. And that ain't enough. Do you know what I mean? Like people want to go and listen to good music now. Do you know what I mean? And the Brush still does that, right? But also we live in a world where there ain't scenes anymore. Do you know what I mean? Scenes don't exist like they used to.
That's the thing that scares me. That's the thing that scares me. That there's no tribalism. I mean, you mentioned like you was either into like your Britpop or you was into like jungle and drum and bass, and you could tell what people were into. You could just look at them, and it was like, oh yeah, he's a raver, or like he's a grunger, or he's like and you could just look at people and it was tribal, and I think that's really good. I mean, you go back through scenes of music, through rockers, mods, skins, like all of it has got its own kind of rule book, culture, music, visual, and it's all so strong. All of these youth cultures, like even like when you look at like the early acid house raves and stuff like that, it just created so much of a scene. And now, apart from metalers, big up the metalers.
Oh, yeah, big up the metalers. They still hold it. Yeah, fair.
And
you'll buy merch as well. Good on the metalers.
Yeah, and they're the only ones. And I look at the people that come through the doors of my club now, which was always very alternative, and they don't look. A lot of the clubbers don't look like they're into that music because it's all people look quite. I don't mean, and I shouldn't say generic, but I do think because of the things like Spotify and stuff like that, people listen to a bit of everything, and yeah, it's very strange, very strange.
Well, I think the interesting thing about that is that identity thing, and it's from the 50s onwards, right? That kind of the youth movement, which has kind of died it's kind of that youth movement where the teenagers were able to create identities for themselves in like a group dynamic, and that doesn't exist anymore in the same way. I mean, I suppose it does with certain acts. Like for girls, it's Taylor Swift. They've got that, but that's not punk. You know what I mean? It's not alternative. It's not pushing against the establishment. And I think maybe one of the reasons why young people struggle so much is that they can't form an identity in such a disparate landscape. You know, when there's nothing to hang on to. I was, at your most vulnerable as a boy, 11, going through puberty. That's a really difficult period for all men, right? Is working out where they fit in the hierarchy and how they fit into the world, and understanding that, family, your family dynamics, and then having someone you could grab onto, whatever that scene was. And if I'd been born 10 years earlier, it would have been a different scene. I think I was inherently going to hook onto something. But kids don't necessarily have that in the same way. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but it's just not the same because everything's available to everyone all the time. And albums ain't as powerful as they used to be. And yeah, it's an interest, and it is what it is. We move with the times, and something will arise. And like you say, full circle, I think eventually something will come from the ether, which will galvanize the youth again. Do you know what I mean? There'll be something within our lifetime that we can't even understand or see. We'll be too old to get it, but it will be this counterculture movement, because I don't think it can carry on in this kind of bland mediocrity for too long. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think kids will get bored.
Absolutely.
Get up your iPad. You know what I mean? Pick up the guitar.
Right, I'm going to take you home, Dan. Favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
I'm a home county. I said home country.
Do you know what? I've really got to amend this. Dan, you are episode 679, right? And let me just tell you something, right? You are probably guest 670 that has gone, county? Oh, fuck, I thought you said country. So it's my fault. Everyone does it. So,
I could my favourite song from Essex with a Depeche Mode track or something. No, thanks. I'm going to take this because it's actually from my mum's home county. So I went with the Beatles yesterday. But what's your favourite? I mean, your favourite song from a writer in Britain? I mean, take your pick. Like, we are the nuts at this, and we have been for 50 years. Like, there ain't many things in the last 50, 60 years to be proud of to be British, but our music culture and our art culture is something that we should be hanging our hats on when there's a lot of other nasty stuff going on in the world. You talk about what it is to be British, British identity, creativity, writing, art. That's what we do. That's what we've done best for the last 50, 60 years. And it's having a lot of downward pressure on it now. But yeah, so I went yesterday, the Beatles, which is like, of course, it's one of the greatest songs of all time, One man guitar, a little bit of strings.
It's ridiculous. Whenever I think of the Beatles, I never think of yesterday. Like, and I adore the Beatles. And every now and again, if I'm like listening to the Beatles and yesterday comes on, now you just think, what? How fucking smug would Macca have been when he walked away from the piano that day? Like, because now you just think, you've just made something perfect. Like, you can't better that song. You can't, like, do anything to that recording that will make that better. Like, what point do you think, was he content with that? Because he then went on to do it about another 50 fucking times. And,
there's 2 points there, right? One, the amount of output in 7 years is ridiculous. We've managed like 4 albums in 15 years. We're doing like 4 albums every 2 years. Like, the catalogue is ridiculous.
And the progression.
Yeah. But also, when it comes to yesterday, there's a really great interview with Paul where he talks about how it came to him in his sleep. The song came to him fully formed. The lyrics, the melody, everything, all there. Woke up with it and was like, okay, where's this from? Like, I've obviously, this is a memory of another song. Went to John Lennon. John, what's this song? No idea. Went to George Martin. George, what's this song? No idea. Went to a few other people. No idea what you're talking about. Gave it 2 weeks. Went, well, it must be mine. And that's yesterday, right? That even it was so classic that when he wrote it, he couldn't believe that he'd written it. And it does kind of fall into that thing as songwriters, and anyone who writes songs, you know, can kind of get on board with this. There are times where it is a bit magical, where a song will come to you out of absolutely nowhere, fully formed, like melody, lyrics. I had it with Favourite Worry. I wrote Favourite Worry. I was me and my wife, before we were married, we were living this tiny little.
Can I just say,
yeah,
it's my favourite Milk song.
I'll take it, mate. I'll take it. But that came to me fully formed, mate. Fully formed one morning, and we were on our knees, man. We'd just been dropped from sailing. My wife was working in recruitment, trying to keep the roof over our head. I was there playing guitar every day, trying to write songs for the album. We were living on the, you know, it's classic kind of thing. We were living in this mezzanine kind of small house where like there was a mezzanine floor with the bed on, and we were down beneath. I felt like a hobbit. Do you know what I mean? The house was so small. I felt like I was walking around this. It was just tiny, and I was there every day. I was working on it, writing, playing. I was like practicing 8-9 hours a day. I got a bit mental with it. So, I mean, like, was really on it. And because I was living and breathing, I think some of that is just you. When you're doing something so much, eventually stuff just happens, right? So some of it is just craft and hard work. But that one was just weird, out of nowhere. Woke up in the morning. It's there in my head. The whole thing, the lyric, the whole story was in my head. It was like, and I sat down to write it, and all the lyrics just sort of came out. I made a few tweaks here and there, but like all the lyrics came out as though, yeah, as they say, the antenna was up. Do you know what I mean? And the universe, I aligned with some universal force that gave me that song. You know, because none of it belongs to any of us, right? It's just, you know, it's just waves, man.
I've got a slightly similar story to that, Dan, and like, you know, way before the Milk, I was in a couple of bands and was writing songs and whatnot. But I hadn't written music for a long time, and but I always had like little ideas going around in my head, just like little melodies and stuff like that. And I think this would have been about 2000, and I hadn't made music for about 4 years, and I was in bed, and I think just had like my eldest. So I'm laying in bed in the middle of the night with the missus, and all of a sudden I wake up and I've got this melody in my head, and I'm like, Carol, wake up. She's like, what? And I went, listen to this. Do 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 dun 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 dun. And she went, why are you singing My Sharona at 1:30 in the morning? And like, and I was like, fuck, it's My Sharona.
We've all done that before as well. We've all sat down and written a song, gone, I've just written a Bee Gees song. Do you know what I mean? Or I've just stolen some classic Rolling Stones track.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes you use that for inspiration, right? I mean, sometimes the easiest way to get a song going or start the creative process is to take a song you love, like change the key signature to a 6/8, right? Take it down a step, right? Detune your guitar, do some weird stuff, and it can spark a journey, which then you end up with a song which was nothing like the original, but you needed somewhere to spark that inspiration from. Chris Martin talks about it a lot. He never writes on standard tuning, apparently. Apart from he's on the piano, he'll write like that, but on a guitar, he always tunes to like a random tuning, so he doesn't fall into the traps of just playing the shapes. Do you know what I mean? So he's using his musicality to lead his songwriting rather than the boxes on the guitar, right? Because it's very easy guitar to just fall into the same kind of tried and tested patterns, whereas if you do an altered tuning, you can open up a world of stuff. And it's really interesting because if you do like a dadgad or you do like an open D tuning, you start thinking with your ears rather than with the shapes in your head, right? And then you can end up writing something really interesting, and then you work it out, you transpose it back to the guitar on normal, and you realize all you've done is play 2 chords, right? You made a really simple song, but you've been led by your ears rather than by the constructs of the guitar itself, which has some limiting factors to it because of the way it's set up. And I always find that interesting, and trying to find that spark of creativity very hard as you get older, especially when you got busy with kids and stuff. Trying to find the time to do nothing and just write. It's tricky, right? But that's a good way to do it.
It's your last track, Dan, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear.
Okay, this is an artist that my wife introduced me to. She's, bless her, she does these playlists for me on Spotify. I'm quite a melancholic guy. I struggle with like mental health and stuff, and have done for like 7 or maybe longer, but like for 7 or 8 years, you know, I've always struggled up and down a bit, not bipolar, not clinically, but like up and down. I struggle with it, and she writes me these playlists, like they're little presents, free presents of like inspiration for music, and she sent me this track in a playlist, and I absolutely adore it. It's like understated, soulful, beautiful, European slightly, and it's like the master of mood. It's called Morning Sun by Melody Gardot. If you're familiar with her, she's French. It's honestly, mate, Sunday morning, if you get a Sunday or a Saturday morning without the kids, which you've got a few of now, just drink a cup of coffee and put that track on. And it is one of those songs, and the songs that I always love, right? They kind of they feel like life. They're both beautiful and sad. They're uplifting and lonely. They're kind of those things that clash, like Bridge Over Troubled Waters, like that. Yesterday's like that. They're kind of hopeful, but they're melancholic at the same time. That's the stuff that really triggers me. Like, I love that music, and this is to me like a modern classic. And it's, yeah, whether it's a Sunday morning or a late night drive home, you know, when you've got those, I love those late night drives. I do them from the studio. You know, I'm driving back at 1 a.m. Kids are going to be up at 5. I've got my music on. It's just me. Like, all is good in the world. I've had a productive weekend with the boys playing, and this is one of those tracks that I always go to. Just I feel like I'm in a film. Do you know what I mean? When I'm driving to it. So go check that out, everyone. It's a classic.
We make it nice and easy to do that, Dan, and weirdly, you mentioned Spotify playlist. We create a Spotify playlist to accompany the show, so you can go and listen to that and all the other songs that we've spoken about today. And obviously, there'll be some milk on there as well. So we've spent quite a lot of time discussing other people's music and not discussing your music. So what's happening with the milk, Dan? What's going down?
Well, we got our album out. Our album's coming out on the 19th. We're out on tour, so we're playing in London at the 229. We're up in Manchester, Band on the Wall, Stroud, Shoreham. Yeah, it's nice, mate. We're back. We've had 3 singles out. They're doing well. We're getting plays on radio. Like 6, are looking after us. We're moving. We're building the team up again. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, and people are, we're seeing fans, people responding to the music, because you're there going, I'm just a normal bloke, right? I'm not, do you know what I mean? I'm just a bloke with kids who's trying to get by, and then you meet these people who are affected by your music, and it's weird. I find it a bit embarrassing in some ways. Do you know what I mean? I'm not that comfortable with it. I'm not arrogant enough. I'm like, oh wow, thanks, man. Like, yeah, to me, it's just what I've always done. I've done it since I was 12 years old. I've been writing since I was a kid. Like, so to other people, it has this big emotional impact on them. It's weird, like it's a weird thing. And I love being out. I mean, my happy place is being on stage. It's the one time where I get to completely be at one, and not distracted by the world. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing else going on in my life when I'm playing the guitar in the band. My mind doesn't wander, and I'm at the peak of my powers. Do you know what I mean? And then I have to go back into the normal world, and everything's complex and difficult, and there's so many moving parts. But when you're just playing guitar in a band, nothing else matters. Do you know what I mean? So it's a joyous thing. And the albums, we've done it all ourselves. We paid for it ourselves. Mitch has done an incredible job producing it. It's his finest work. He's really shown his craft. Strings, brass, it's just massive, and it's our best work. We've tried to take all the things that we've done well over the last 4 albums, and distill it into something that, does all those things, but not for the audience, for ourselves. If we think it's brilliant, it's brilliant. And if we think there should be a 5-piece brass section and a string section and a choir on it, we've done it. And we've paid great people to come in and play on it, and we've recorded it like we recorded the main section all live. So behind each song is just the 4 of us grooving. Like, so some of it's done with hangovers, and there's little bits which are, if you know, like slightly out. Like, it's like the old school, in a world of like digital quantized stuff. We've tried to create something that's more like a timeless classic, and we think it does that. And the reaction from press has been good. And yeah, it's been hard work trying to get it done with 3 kids. I'll say that. Whew. I won't be doing that again.
Well, I look forward to it, and I urge people, if you've never seen the Milk live, to go and do that. I've seen you many times, and it's always a fantastic and joyous experience. And Dan, if people want to find out about tour dates, releases, where's the best place to keep up to speed with all things the Milk?
This is themilk.com.
Fantastic, Dan. It's always nice to see you, mate. Thanks for coming on and talking records with me, mate. I wish you all the best with the record, yeah, it's just a joy to see you, mate.
Thanks, Stu. Pleasure, mate. You look after yourself, right?
I'm going to press stop. Don't go anywhere.